All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover exactly why your seemingly crystal clear instructions are leaving AI models totally guessing. It's a fascinating dynamic, really. We'll be looking at how the very way we naturally communicate is often the exact reason we get unpredictable results from AI. And hey, it's not about learning to code, so don't worry about that. It's really about learning how to see the invisible layers of your own language.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You ask a language model for something completely straightforward. You hit enter, you're confident you're going to get exactly what you need, and then the output comes back. And it's just unpredictable. Maybe it's a bit too generic or just slightly off in a way you can't quite put your finger on. You reread your prompt and think, but I told it exactly what to do. Well, did you? The source text we're breaking down today argues that the problem isn't that your prompt was empty, it's that it was quietly incomplete. Think of it kind of like ordering at a busy tea stall. If you just walk up and say, "Give me tea," you will absolutely get a cup of tea. But you probably won't get the specific sweetness, the strength, or the exact style, like a nice rich doodh patti, that you actually had in your head. The words "give me tea" are right there, sure, but the real meaning is hidden inside your unstated assumptions. Your own familiarity with what you want completely hides the gaps in your request. And as it turns out, AI prompts behave the exact same way. So today we're diagnosing this exact bug. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with the problem with prompts, look at how assumptions are invisible instructions, break down the 3 prompts layers, and learn about revealing and rebuilding prompts. Finally, we'll wrap up with extracting your hidden decisions and how all of this leads to better prompts and better thinking.
All right, part 1, the problem with prompts. To figure out why AI struggles here, we really have to change how we view our own language. See, language is not a set of absolute instructions. It's actually more like a partially drawn map. It shows the final destination, absolutely, but it entirely leaves out the roads and the landmarks that the reader actually needs to navigate there confidently. So a prompt is never just text. It is text plus assumptions. They fail because they expect the model to navigate without those roads. They just assume context, intent, and standards that, honestly, were never actually typed out.
Which brings us to section 2, assumptions are invisible instructions.
This is where we hit a massive aha moment. The real culprit here is our own curse of knowledge. Humans are practically experts at skipping over what feels obvious to us. So we really need to redefine what an assumption is in this context. It's not just a missing detail sitting harmlessly beside your prompt. No, it is an active, invisible instruction. It sits right inside the prompt's meaning, quietly deciding what actually counts as correct. Think about it. When you say clean the room, the assumption is making the call on whether you mean make it look tidy for guests or do a deep clean of the dust. It's literally a choice, disguised as common sense. And our sources brilliantly illustrate this with the rule of 3 for assumptions. Check out how these hidden assumptions secretly take control of the AI's steering wheel. First, they control meaning, what the words are actually taken to mean. Second, they dictate priority, what the model should focus on first. And third, they set the standard, what good actually looks like for this output. So when a prompt underperforms, it's actually not failing randomly. It's flawlessly following the invisible instructions you accidentally left in place. Wild, right? To fix this, we need to start peeling the onion. Let's look at section 3, the 3 prompt layers. Let's look at the actual architecture of our requests. Every single prompt breaks down into 3 distinct layers. At the very top, you have the visible wording, the actual sentence you typed out, which usually sounds super clear but secretly hides ambiguity. Right below that, you've got the hidden assumptions, your background expectations where the model is essentially forced to guess your task. And finally, the goal we are aiming for is the rebuilt intent. This is the prompt after those assumptions are surfaced and clarified. Basically, fewer guesses mean much, much more reliable output. Moving right along to section 4, revealing and rebuilding prompts. Here's the crucial point. A weak prompt isn't weak because it lacks meaning. It's weak because way too much of its meaning is carried by those unstated assumptions. Your job isn't just to write more words, it's to reconstruct the whole thing. Take a look at this comparison. Saying, make this professional is weak because professional is a fuzzy, entirely subjective judgment word. It forces the AI to choose your standard for you. But the rebuilt version, asking for a calm, respectful tone for a client email, keeping it brief, avoiding slang, that replaces the vague assumption with concrete, useful constraints. You're translating a subjective idea into parameters the model can actually process.
And ambiguity rarely comes in just one flavor. It usually hides in one of the four places we see here. There's task ambiguity, where a word like improve leaves the model wondering if it should edit or summarize. There's audience ambiguity, where explain leaves it guessing the reader's actual expertise level. Then you have standard ambiguity and scope ambiguity. Now, your goal isn't to remove all uncertainty in the universe. If you do that, your prompts just become way too rigid. You just want to remove the uncertainty that matters for your specific task. You want to give the model enough structure to guide it, but enough openness to actually let it reason. Which brings us to Section 5, extracting your hidden decisions. Okay, so this is probably the deepest idea of this whole framework. Prompt rebuilding is fundamentally just decision extraction. Think of a prompt exactly like handing someone a camera. If you hand a super capable camera to someone and just say, hey, take a good photo, you aren't really giving them an instruction, are you? You're forcing them to guess your personal taste. What should be in the frame? How close should the subject be? The lighting, the vibe. A vague prompt forces an AI to make creative choices that, honestly, you should have made explicitly. Let's see how this plays out in a real-world scenario. Take this super familiar example, a university student asking a professor for an extension via WhatsApp. If you just prompt, write a polite message asking for more time, that blindly assumes the AI knows it should sound natural for WhatsApp, that it shouldn't be overly formal, and that the reason should sound credible, but, not overly dramatic. If those decisions are just left floating in the background, the model might invent something incredibly stiff or totally self-important. You really have to pin those decisions down. So how do we regain control? Simply run your prompt through this incredibly practical 3-step pattern. First, ask yourself, what is the actual surface task being asked? Second, what invisible instructions are being assumed? And third, what useful guidance should be stated instead? Just by doing this, you instantly move from hopelessly reacting to bad outputs to actively designing the model's search space. You stop the AI from drifting and latching onto the wrong meaning of those highly subjective words.
And that leads us perfectly into our final section. Section 6, better prompts, better thinking. By applying this framework, prompt writing finally stops being a game of guesswork. I really love this quote. Clarity is not just a property of wording. It is a property of thinking. Once you stop just trusting surface-level clarity, you experience this massive shift. You start reading for intent, for gaps, and for those hidden decisions. And the amazing thing here is that the exact same habit that improves your AI outputs actually upgrades your own human cognition. It sharpens how you frame problems and really helps you judge whether an instruction you give to anyone, human or machine, is actually truly clear. So I want to leave you with this. Before you hit enter on your very next request, pause. Ask yourself, what is this prompt assuming the AI already knows? Extract those hidden decisions, clarify your standard, and just watch how much your results transform. But more importantly, it raises a much bigger question. If we aren't consciously designing the invisible instructions in our own lives, well, who or what is making those choices for us? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Catch you next time.